the Enwonwus and the Yusuf Grillos and so on. I still do, okay? And I kind of stuck to that genre of classic. Those are the people who, when I was growing up, as I told you, those are the people who were my parents, either just older than them or contemporaries. So I grew up knowing these artists as my uncles, okay? So my first collecting was, you know, from works, you know, done by masters like that. After a while, you know, these works are really priced in. But Bumi Augusto, you know, her works, you know, which may appear even a bit pricey now, in 10 years' time, you know. So this is also hosted by Coronation, which are companies that are all about wealth creation. So there's also the investment angle. I don't collect for investments, but you know, with all that these great Nigerian and African artists, the young ones, have been doing, and the way their prices have been rising, you know, I've got to focus on investments now.
He collaborated with the Nigerian Civil Service to digitalize work processes and public service delivery in October 2021. Recognizing 43 public servants at the 2022 Civil Service Award ceremony on behalf of the Ige Mokwede Foundation with an encouragement of cash prize worth 500,000 naira for each awardees.
It is my understanding that annually 43 public servants will be recognized in this fashion, and so with effect from the 2022 Civil Service Awards ceremony, on behalf of the Ige Mokwede Foundation, we will be putting an endowment with effect from this award session, whereby each awardee receives a cash prize of 500,000 naira. And in the interest of digital culture, the credits will go directly to your accounts.
Among his many certifications, affiliations, and fellowships, Ige Mokwede holds Triumph MBA from the London School of Economics, New York University, and HEC Paris. He attended an executive management program at Harvard Business School in the year 2000, and he is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, also appointed to the International Advisory Board of Oxford University's Blavatnik School of Government. Ige Mokwede is a honorary fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and had received an honorary doctorate of science from Olabisi Onabanjo University in 2018. Also honored by Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers of Nigeria last year in a groundbreaking ceremony.
If the operators of our markets, of a nation's capital markets, are properly resourced in terms of skill, capacity, and conduct, nothing can stop that nation and its citizens from leaving the tarmac and moving from third world to first world. Nothing can stop it. The correlation between the advancement of financial markets and the advancement of national economies is perfect. It's not almost, it is perfect. And so, you understand why I have tied myself to the future of this market and why I have tried from the very word go that my voice was heard to get the public sector and the elite within the private sector to understand that we cannot ignore this market.
Igboje is the first African co-chairman of the Global Business Coalition on Health and chairman of the Friends of the Global Fund, Africa. The business mogul has made significant donations to the Global Fund. He is the vice chairman of the Global Citizen Nigeria and creator of the Nigerian Solidarity Support Fund. There is always a story, or say many stories, behind every success, and this Ike Imokwede has shared in a book called Leaving the Tarmac, Buying a Bank in Africa, Red Door 2020. In it, he talked about how he and others turned Access Bank into a major success, showing his determination and vision.
On a personal note, I think the first thing is that I left Access Bank. I retired as CEO in 2013, and I knew that I needed time off just to recharge my battery, so to speak. I didn't think I would have more than a year and a half before my perpetual motion character, kind of took over once again. And so I wanted to use that period as productively as possible. So I had a year and a half, and what better to do in a year and a half, than write a book. And for me, it was an opportunity, for posterity to tell the story to my children in a structured sense, because before then, I just hadn't had the opportunity to sit down with my kids and say, this is what I did today, or this is what I did yesterday, and these are the highs and the lows of this journey. Herbert and I went through a hell of an experience between 2002 and 2013, and for him, that experience has continued. We learned so much. We were exposed to so many things. We had really, really great mountains that we climbed. We scaled some pretty high heights and so on. In a sense, it would be very selfish of us to, lock this up in a box and not share it with others, because I think our experience, can be used by any other person who has an ambition to go out there and do, whatever it is they seek, whatever it is they dream about. And so the notion of writing for posterity and recording this period in my life, and probably more important, the notion of preparing a way for others, those are the things that drove me to write the book.
Ike Imokwede, former managing director of Access Bank Group, returns to lead Access Holdings, replacing Abubakar Jimo. His return after a decade aims to realize the shared vision of the late co-founder, Herbert Wigwe. Access Holdings PLC, trading under the Access Corp ticker on the Nigerian exchange, began to feel Ike's progressive impact as its stock value increased by 1.52% following his appointments as chairman. Ike Imokwede is back again. Ike Imokwede is married to Ofovwe Ike Imokwede and has 4 children, namely Ohiozoje, Aima, Morenike, and Renown. He has been able to balance his family life with his professional achievements, setting an example as a leader and role model to many. He is an ordained minister of the Promised Land Ministry. In the annals of Nigerian business history, his story stands out, showcasing the power of vision, perseverance, and giving back to the community. From his humble beginnings to global recognition, he inspires others to dream big and make a difference. His legacy remains as he continues to make strides in business and philanthropy.
Trafalgar Square, established in 1844, is a symbol of British naval history and a popular cultural spot in London. Named after the 1805 Battle of Trafalgar, it has been the site of celebrations, protests, and cultural events, representing the changing identity of the city. It houses several landmarks, like the Nelson Column, St. Martin in the Fields Church, and the National Gallery. The Nelson's Column, a tribute to a naval hero, is the main feature of Trafalgar Square. Standing 52 meters tall, completed in 1843, it honors Admiral Horatio Nelson's victory at Trafalgar. The column is topped with a statue of Nelson, and 4 bronze panels at its base show scenes from his battles. Surrounding it are 4 large bronze lions added in 1867, symbolizing British power.
Iconic part of British culture, not just in its look, but this is very much the sort of centre of London. You know, whenever there's a celebration, a protest, it's a public space that's very important for a lot of not just people that live in London, but for the UK. You know, it's a place where people would congregate. You know, I remember being here all around the 2012 Olympics, but it was very much one of the centerpieces of British iconic culture. Yeah, no, you used to be able to climb on the lions when I was younger, but you can't do anymore. So there you go. That's progress for you.
St. Martin's in the Fields Church, reputed as an architectural gem, was built between 1722 and 1726. It is known for its neoclassical design by architect James Gibbs, and is famous for its portico and steeple, and has influenced architecture worldwide. The church also a rich musical history, hosting concerts and helping the homeless.
Yeah, I actually came to London just on a little day trip, and then I remembered that this church sometimes has classical music on, so I just popped in, and there's no concert, but there were some people practicing. So there's a quartet of violins, and they made some lovely, sort of practice for some classical concerts. So I really enjoyed just sitting there for 10 minutes, listening to it. It's lovely, it's a really nice church, and it's nice that people don't use it much time. So maybe we should have a nice coffee as well.
The National Gallery, founded in 1824, is a treasure trove of art. Located on the north side of Trafalgar Square, it houses over 2,300 artworks from the 13th to 20th century, with free public access to masterpieces from major European artists.
I'm not really sure. I haven't been through the museum yet, but I'm here for a Christian heritage tour to kind of learn more about the history of the Protestant Reformation in England and Christian history here in England through the paintings that are in the gallery. So that's what I'm here for today.
Trafalgar Square blends Britain's naval history with modern art and culture. It remains an important public space, attracting millions of visitors each year to experience London's rich heritage and vibrant atmosphere. Chike Okolo, reporting for Souq News.
The growing interest in Nigeria's lithium reserves comes as countries worldwide scramble to secure supplies of the mineral, which is essential for powering the green energy revolution. In this special report by Bayo Olaoye, the need to harness this resource for growth and development is examined, with the evolution of electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems. Lithium is a key component in the production of batteries for electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems, and Nigeria is positioning itself to become a major player in the global lithium market. Nigeria's vast lithium reserves, valued over $34 billion, is no doubt attracting world attention, while lithium factories are springing up in different parts of Nigeria already. The attention of the international mining industry is also focused on lithium because it is critical raw material for the production of solar panels and electric vehicles. Analysts predict that global lithium market could grow robustly over the next decade, driven by the rapid adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. Data from a Global Future Market Insight showed that the lithium mining industry has emerged as a cornerstone of the clean energy transition, driven by the skyrocketing demand for lithium-ion batteries. The surge in lithium demand is driven largely by the electric vehicles market, which accounted for over 70% of the global lithium consumption in 2024, according to an Iranian-based research firm. With countries such as the United States, China, and members of the European Union pushing for next zero emission by mid-century, lithium demand is expected to escalate further. The federal government, indeed, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, should intensify efforts geared at renewing and resuscitating the viable lithium industry in the country to its full potential. As Nigeria diversifies its economy into other sectors, the lithium industry offers hope and expectation that this sector would earn more revenue for the country. Nigeria should not just watch with folded arms, but must strive with the political will to develop and strengthen the country's vast lithium reserves.
Run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Speaking about moving forward, welcome to Just Africa, and this is a show created as a catalyst for Africa development. My name is Adetola Aderinto, put it swift at the end, and I'm not alone today. I'm so excited to have the very handsome and intelligent young man. We call him a maverick. His name is Moyo Adebi. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for that very glowing introduction. I appreciate that.
Moyo, you do look good. What happened last night?
I'm gonna keep it a buck. I knew I was gonna do the show with you, and this is our first time on screen. It's an honor, so I have to put my best foot forward.
Oh, okay, I like it. All right, so talking about putting our best foot forward, today we are talking about pathways for developing transportation infrastructure and logistics in Nigeria. And basically, Nigeria's transportation and infrastructure is vital for economic growth, trade, and facilitation, and it links other African countries and the diaspora together. In Nigeria, we have four major types of transportation. We have the road transportation, the railway transportation, the sea transportation, and air transportation. Of course, we want to use as a bone of contention the controversial 700-kilometer highway stretching from Lagos to Calabar. And this is set to become Nigeria's largest infrastructural project with an estimated 15 trillion, which is approximately $12.5 billion, translating to about 4 billion per kilometer. We must note here that Nigeria's road network spans, before this one, about 200 kilometers, with federal roads consisting 18%, despite being dominant and they are accountable for about 90% of the passengers' traffic all over the world. So Moyo, let's get down to it very quickly. Let's start with road network. We already know we have four, but what does networking in Nigeria generally mean to you?
Well, I mean, one of the major things that we must note is that transportation and logistics is the nerve center of any economy. Even here, right here in Nigeria.
Yes.
And you see that from state to state, take Lagos, for example.
Yes.
You would notice that we have, compared to the other states, a better transportation network. And
yes.
that translates heavily in our GDP and our productivity. So it's very, very important that when we make decisions about growing the economy, we have to focus on logistics and transportation. Because as we all know, most of all these food prices that are high, most of the problem hinges on logistics and the transportation of these food products, to where people will consume them. So it's a very, very important issue.
I like the fact you started to talk about the fact that Lagos State is unique.
Yes.
Even in waterways, they tell you that it is only Lagos State that they are doing a fantastic job with Nebesa, who have been able to craft waterways to move goods from one place to the other. Yeah, still talking about our road network. Of course, we know that Lagos State was one of the first places that there was the road network started in, road transportation started in, compared to, other states. So Delta State leading to Edo State was one of the first places sea or maritime transportation started it when the Portuguese came to Nigeria for the first time. Air transportation, Lagos State. Rail transportation, also Lagos State. So, of course, Lagos, Kano, they have a stronger link. So now, I want to ask a question. Do you think that we can do better with what we are seeing, or do you think we are at a global stage at this point?
We can do better within the context of our own, transportation network. I mean, even just think of the Apapa and Tinkan Island. These are, they're almost like a legacy.
Yes.
But right now, if you're going to approach those places, there's a lot of congestion on the road. I'm being serious.
Yes,
Access is a bit of a struggle. So we can improve on many of these things. In fact, we're having a conversation on SBL as how many of these ports even have a direct link via rail. Sort of like the rail line in Heathrow that takes you to East London. So it takes you from East London straight into the airport. So in many of these, ports, they have railways, but they are not working. They have rail lines, but they are not working. So these are the things that we can improve upon, just to increase connectivity. And then we also talk about this in the broader African context, the African. What do you call it? It's trade zone agreement.
Yes, the free trade zone
agreement. The African one. See, sometimes it's a great idea, right? But low-key,
implementation.
And also low-key, it also feels like we might have put the cart before the horse, because one of the greatest legacy of colonialism in Africa is that they made sure that everybody sort of stayed in isolation. Connectivity was not a priority for them because it helped them to carry out the colonial process. So that was something that we have to break away from, and we still struggle with. I don't think connectivity-wise, we've really put a lot of things in place, and we've really harnessed what we can do.
All right, so talking about connectivity, someone cracked a joke that maybe the problem is our forefathers were used to air travel.
When you say air travel, do you mean
so
craft
the air travel when you touch banana leaf and appear somewhere. So I think that has militated against the structure of government, because we are looking at people in legislative. They are not putting so much. You are talking about policies, and sometimes we say, okay, the policies are good, especially when it comes to maintenance. So I'll give you an example of the Lekki toll gate. It was a fantastic idea. We were collecting toll. That road was being maintained, because I'd gone through that route a couple of times. If there's a pothole in the morning when you're driving through, when you're coming back in the afternoon or in the evening, it's sorted. And that was what, at that point, Lagos State government was trying to, do exactly what they were seeing overseas. But now there was a riot, sentimental purposes, people felt some people, and that was stopped. Right now, the Lekki toll gates road is very bad. Like from law school, if you're coming from law school, there are potholes. In fact, there was a friend of mine, and there are area boys there. So once anything happens to your car, people just come in.
You're in trouble.
We can't take away the BRT system in Lagos. That helps. But of course, because of the population of Lagos, you still need private sector. So at this point, I want to ask a question. The private partnership with government, how realistic is it, or how effective has it been? We have seen it very effective in Lagos State. There are some other states that if it's not government-owned, they are not working. And this is why the road network, which is the most useful network in Nigeria for the now, is kind of on a slip-slope venture.
I mean, I think if that reflects anything, that there might be a bit of a funding gap somewhere.
Yes.
There might be a bit of a funding gap somewhere. But, I mean, these things can be done. Sometimes you open the internet and you hear that even Heathrow was owned by the Ogunlesi's company. So the government don't have to own all these things. The government don't have to. But more of just take a regulatory function, an oversight function in ensuring that these things work better. So we can do more, that's for sure. Also, you look at something like, what's his name? Dangote yesterday said he's going to invest 900 billion in developing roads, and that comes from the tax credit scheme. So these are things, machineries and tools that we can do to ensure infrastructure, especially in the transportation sector. So there's so many things that we can do. We just need to be willing and, think outside the box and push the boundaries a little bit.
Talking about being willing and able, of course, we have to give credit to Dangote. He has not just revolutionized, moving from one African country to another with his brand. We are talking about green energy. The maritime world has been revolutionized through the ports that he uses to export fuel or petroleum products out of Nigeria from his refinery. But coming to somebody that is going to do justice, I'm about to take you on a quick break, and when we come back, our guest is going to be in the studio. His name is Dr. Osama Zeh, and he's very brilliant, intelligent, and he has traveled to over 49 different countries in the world. So when it comes to talking about transportation, he's going to not just be telling you from, reading from a book or a paper. He's going to be telling you from evidence or being there and seeing the way the transportation system all over the world works. I am still Swift the Director, and this is still Souq News TV. Do not go anywhere. See you in a bit.
Traffic regulations are practices put in place in both developed and underdeveloped countries. They are designed to ensure the safety of all road users, reduce accidents, and promote orderly movement. Either you are a driver or a passenger, every road user is required to understand and follow these laws. Under obligations, drivers must possess a valid driver's license issued by the authorized body. In Nigeria, this is the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC.
Individual, like I've just said, most Nigerians, as we know, celebrate their date of birth. And as such, when you obtain a driver's license, says for 3 years or 5 years, you already know if you do it today, in the next 5 years, when you'll be celebrating your birthday, you are already aware that your license is due for renewal. You don't have to even wait until that date. By law, a month to that date, you should start processing the renewal of the driver's license.
While other countries have their respective designated authorities, vehicles must also be properly registered and insured, with up-to-date documentation readily available when requested by law enforcement officers. Mandatory rules include observing speed limits, which vary depending on the road type. In cities, the limit is 50 km per hour, increasing to 80 km per hour on highways and 100 km per hour on expressways. Before hitting the road, seat belts are mandatory for both drivers and front seat passengers. Also, all traffic signs, signals, and road markings must be obeyed. Drivers must remember that using a mobile phone while driving is a punishable offense unless assisted by a hands-free device. Drunk driving is illegal, with penalties ranging from fines and license suspension to imprisonment. For passengers, wearing seatbelts is essential, and distracting the driver should be avoided at all costs. In public transport, any reckless driving should be reported to the authorities, and pedestrians, on the other hand, must also cross at designated pedestrian crossings, zebra crossings, or pedestrian bridges where available. They should follow pedestrian traffic lights and only cross when the signal indicates it is safe. Looking left, right, and left again before stepping onto the road is crucial and should avoid running while crossing. Making eye contacts with approaching vehicles ensures they see you before you proceed. By following traffic regulations, road users can prevent accidents, protect lives, and contribute to smoother transportation for everyone. Grace Komolafe, Souq News Television.
Hello Nigeria, hello Africa. Yeah, this is Sound Man. Keep watching Souq News.
My name is Babalola from Excel LED. Keep watching Souq News.
My name is Shepherd Michael Adewale Onofuye. I enjoy you all to always watch Souq News TV.
Hi, I'm Tom Boggaballs, and please keep watching Souq News.
Wale Seriki, SLG Lagos Island East, Souq News, keep out watching them and keep a lookout for them. They're up and coming, and we're proudly to be affiliated with them.
You alone where they make me go crazy. This your love in the cool of my brain. You're my medicine, I need you all day. Yo, it's Blackface Nigeria, and you're watching Souq News TV. Keep it locked on this dial, don't change it. You know what I say? Blackface Nigeria, love no bad.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
Welcome back. This is Just Africa if you just joined us, and this is one of the most I would call it the most interesting and educative programs you can watch on television. This is Souq News TV, and today I've been doing justice to the topic. We're talking about infrastructure of the transportation system in Nigeria, using it as a case study for Africa. I had with me Moyo Adebiyi, and we talked a bit. And so right now we have brought in somebody as a guest in the studio. He's not just handsome, he's brilliant and interesting. Of course, Dr. Idausa Osamase is a leadership development and is an expert in a social commentator. He has been in a couple of programs as the person we always run to because he knows a lot. Like I told you before, he's been to over 49 countries in the world. So when it comes to transportation and development, Dr. Samase is not just an authority, it's somebody I should lean towards. Dr. Samase, good morning, sir, and welcome to the show. How are you?
Adetola, good morning. Moyo, Lagos.
Good morning, sir.
A pleasure to be here this morning.
Okay, so it's very nice to be on this table right now because we're telling Dr. Samase that after this event, we should just all have coffee. We should go to some very high five-star restaurants and just have coffee.
It's just the right thing to do.
I'm behind you, man. I agree with you.
It's the right thing to do.
All right, sir. So what do you think are the limitations in Nigeria or Africa when it comes to transportation? The 4 different transportations types that we usually use in Africa, which is air, sea, rail, and road, sir.
Well, I think basically if you look at Africa, generally, you see there's poor transportation infrastructure across. We're not as developed as one would have expected, especially except that you get to the northern part of Africa, maybe Morocco and Egypt, you see that constructions are doing very well. But back in the West, you see a lot of underdeveloped infrastructure. And I think the worst part of that is the fact that we're also very poor in terms of maintenance. And that is actually the whole big elephant in the room. Yes. And you cannot imagine that in the late 50s, we have a rail that was connecting Lagos, for example, to Kano.
Yes.
And most of the people who travel at that time, because the airports were not as functional as they are today, we're using the rail. And what has happened? And that corridor is completely not active. So these are the challenges that we face. We look at the port infrastructure, for example, and look at the year that they were built, except that Lagos recently took an initiative to build the Lagos Deep Sea port. Maintenance of those infrastructure had been something that one cannot really talk about. So these are the challenges. You see, our airports, take for example in Nigeria here, our international airport that is supposed to be bringing people to our city capital has just one runway. Until recently, we are thinking of building a second runway. Whereas in small countries like Dubai and Rwanda here, you can see multiple aircraft land at the same time because they have multiple runways. Now, these are some of the things that really is worrying the transport sector in Nigeria. And people say, okay, we need so much money to invest in that sector. But again, because we are not as productive as we should be really, the money to actually invest in this basic infrastructure is also a huge challenge. So you have to be relying on development partners. You have to rely on other subnational governments to help you fund some of these projects. And then, of course, the biggest challenge that Africa face, which is, of course, corruption, is that when people bring in money for you to develop facility, they have a value, and at the end of the day, these infrastructures are not delivered. So I think these are the real, some of the challenges that we face as a people.
Yeah, I would just, like to say that and ask, what your thoughts are, because at the turn of the millennia, 2000, it seemed like there was a renewed global interest and also a lot of, Chinese-backed for infrastructural funding when we talk of highways and rails in East and West Africa. Do you think that in a way it has made us a little bit over-reliant on international involvement by way of providing loans and expertise to fund some of our transport infrastructure?
Yeah, but I think, yes, I will agree with you to a very large extent on the over-reliance on loans and facilities. Why will I say so? Because, again, I like the UAE model of the project Souq. They call it the Clean Road Project. Now, what was the project Souq? The project Souq was the United Arab Emirates needed more road infrastructure because of the volume of people that were coming into the country. And therefore, they were thinking, how are we going to fund this project? So, of course, they sit down around table and they are asking themselves, where would the money come from? Yes. And somebody said, well, money will come from development partners, we can borrow from other people. And then, of course, the king said, look, we don't want to borrow. And said, oh, maybe grant. And he said, look, grant we don't have. Who is going to give us grant? Every country has their own problem. And then they came up and said PPP. And he said, well, if we have to partner with private sector, they will cheat us. So it's like, of course, the options are exhausted. But you trust these guys, the Emiratis, the options are never exhausted. Yeah. And then they came up with the Clean Road Project. What that means is build one clean road, put a toll on it, and then whatever you are going to make from that clean road, use it to build other road infrastructure. And if you check on the internet now and check what is the annual revenue that comes from Souq alone, it's getting up to about 800 billion per annum. So $800 million per annum for clean road project. And you can imagine the heavy infrastructure you find in the UAE because of this simple project. You mentioned about the Lekki toll gate, which would have been one of the biggest road infrastructure or the PPP project that would happen here in Africa. That we did a project, but unfortunately, it also failed because of the October 20 event of 2020. So these are issues that, of course, that would not make people to want to participate. Of course, in 1999, remember when Obasanjo came in, we used to have toll gates where, of course, money were collected. But the bad side of it was the fact that a lot of people who were on that project, because federal government was not seeing the money. Yeah, of course, people have printed receipts and the rest of it, and the money not getting to government. And these are money that are supposed to be meant to maintain those roads. But unfortunately, it's getting into a private pocket, which is a bigger problem that we have in Africa. So you see, if you look at those options, see, we're not supposed to be actually looking for loans.
Loans or funding,
Or asking China to come and build road for us. Even in some places in Africa where China has built road, we have not even been able to manage it. And in some cases, now that China is signing an agreement with many of African countries, the first thing to do is to sign out our sovereignty. What that means is that your basic infrastructure that is in your country, and they have the right to run it and operate it as their own. So this is happening in Uganda as we speak, and some other African countries. And I think that should not be naturally. When we have alternatives that can help us actually grow that project. And that's why I was so happy with the Coastal Road project, because after the commissioning of the 30-kilometer, the Minister of War did say that by early of next year, they are going to start the tolling of that road. And that is quite critical. But the problem we are going to have is that I hope it's not going to be this same manual tolling where people have to be printing receipts. So if it's electronic tolling, where, of course, any car that is going to pass that road will have a tag. And, of course, you have a wallet that the money is dropping from your wallet to the federal government account. It will make it very simple. Because in UAE, you don't have that kind of thing. In Canada, you don't have structures built on the road called toll gates. But the roads are tight. And you get to some certain places, and the camera takes your number and automatically deduct money from your wallet and put on the government's account. So that makes it very simple. So human beings are not involved in this collection. And on the dashboard, you can see how much was collected in a day. And then, of course, we can know how to apply this fund to build more infrastructure. And I think this is what Africa needs to embrace. And if we can do that, of course, you will find that in 30 years, 40 years, African will have been connected with arrays of road network, rail systems, and port infrastructure that could be the cynosure of all eyes.
Now, Doctor, I'm here for you because there's something you have said in the course of the conversation which struck me. Are you saying now, I want to find out from your opinion, what do you think about, do you think of the importance of educating Africans on the global policy of taxation and the importance of taxation? Because if you call a typical Nigerian man and you say, look, Oshodi to Lekki, they are thinking of putting toll gates. Hey, they want chop money again. And some people claim it's because they are not properly educated. They are not enlightened to the privileges and the fact that this is important for development. What's your take on this, sir?
Well, I don't think Africans just need more enlightenment. And I think the problem that we have in Africa is the problem of the deficit of trust. And you see, because like Stephen Covey said in one of his books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, trust is like a man who is depositing money in a bank account.
Okay.
So if you deposit so much in that account, so you will have enough to withdraw. And I think that is what most African leaders really need to understand. That, you see, it's not as people don't know that there's an obligation that they are meant to do. But what the issues are is that they see we are doing our own part, and we are expecting that these guys also to be doing their part. But all we see is that we are seeing that we are contributing the little, but it's translating into extravagant lifestyle for those who are supposed to be managing this resource. And because of this, people are resistant. You see, in the elementary study of the system theories in management, what people see is that you find that when a people who are supposed to be giving you some support, and they are supporting you to do some certain thing, now when they see that that support is actually not translating into the things that they want, what they do is that they withdraw that support. And so you find that in Africa, what we find today is actually the demand stress and support stress at the same time. That's why you see government is not functional. Wow. So why citizens are putting more demands on the government, and government is not able to meet those demands, then you also see them withdrawing support from government. Wow. So this issue of taxation is actually a kind of a form of resistance or a protestation against the inefficiency in the system.
Wow.
Now, once people can see that government is sincere in what they're doing, and they are as transparent as they can be, then, of course, you don't even need to say much. I can give you, for example, in the 1970s, communities all around Africa were doing so much to support government. In my rural community, I remember then, the community gathered money to build a general hospital, and they were begging government to second doctors and nurses to run the facility.
Wow.
Built and handed over to government. So they didn't have problem with that.
Because there was trust.
Yes, of course, there was trust.
Yes.
So, but by the time you now see that when they were going to supply water, all the channels were dug by the locals. It didn't cost government anything. Now, but by the time you now see that you use your energy to dig a trunk to lay pipe, and then you see in the budget that about 10 billion has been voted for that same digging that you did. Yes, of course, you are wondering, but this was done for free. So this is where, of course, government started to lose trust. And I think if we must revisit those issues, government must begin to say things they mean and mean the things that they say. And in that case, communication is clearer enough, and people who are here at this other side will be ready to support the government. You can just imagine somebody just win election, become a local government chairman. He has been living in your neighborhood. Then all of a sudden, after 1 year, he has moved into a highbrow area. And you are wondering, what changed? What changed? Access to public funds. And once we live like that, it will be very difficult or to convince people who are living in that suburb to say we continue to support the operation of this local government, because they would know that, look, this man, we are just contributing him money for him to live a larger than life kind of life. So this is a problem in Africa.
All right. Talking about, before you start to ask, talking about problems in Africa, Moya, I wanted to ask you, you know, we talked about doctor taking us out for lunch, and he said yes. So I just want to second this. Because there's a trust issue. No, you said there's no.
Okay. Let's see where this is headed.
So because he has been talking about trust, and you know we trust him.
We do.
Yes.
Actually. Yeah, we do. And that one I can corroborate.
We said coffee. Why is it changing to lunch? You see, this is the deficit I'm talking about.
First of all, she's leading and I'm following. I'm just following. but you know, on that note, I mean, that's like for major things, that's something that's an issue, especially in this part of Africa.
Yes.
But if we take a more, you know, African view to this, I just want to point out first, before I ask the question, that in Africa, as we are, about 43% of the roads are not tarred.
Yes.
And 30% of the tarred roads are in South Africa. So when we talk about this, you know, African
infrastructural development,
free trade,
the free trade. When we talk about that, do you think, again, I know I mentioned it, like putting the cart before the horse, but if we don't have these roads and we don't have this logistics, how realistic are we about the goal of, you know, Africa Continental Trade Agreement? How realistic are we that we'll achieve all of that?
Yeah, it is achievable.
Okay.
And I think what will make that achievable is when Africans come together and understand that we are one people.
Okay.
Because the truth of the matter is that if you get out of this continent, nobody knows Nigeria.
True.
Nobody knows Ghana. We are all African. Whether we are in Asia, we are in Europe, or we are in America, we are all Africans. Once they see a black skin, they see an African. Now, that sense of unity is already within us. But right down at home, we are so fragmented that there's again problem with the deficit of trust. Take, for example, we have had a couple of people since independence in the late 1950s in Africa who had opted to champion a one united Africa. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, in his own day. But he had contemporaries like Leopold Sédar Senghor and all Banda and the rest of them who were contemporaries, but they never believed in the project. And so we could not achieve that oneness, even though that Nkrumah made a lot of effort, both intellectually and socially, to see how to mobilize Africa to be one. Then after Kwame Nkrumah, we have the next person who was on that project was Muammar Gaddafi.
Yes.
And people felt that Muammar Gaddafi was just an expansionist, that he wanted to become the Lord of Africa, having conquered Libya. And so we didn't believe in him.
Afrobeats is a classic overnight success story, except it didn't happen overnight. I'm happy to be here. One of the key things about the Omniverse is that it's designed to go beyond an event and designed to be fully something that people can engage beyond the summit. The point being that Nigeria has so much to bring to the world in terms of these things, but we will be bringing fresh energy, fresh ideas, a fresh engagement, and we're obviously open to collaboration. But hip-hop, it never dies. What's the difference between Thor and Shango? Thor is approaching $50 billion in revenue.